The air was bright and sharp that Tuesday afternoon, sunlight slanting through the thin clouds above Utah Valley University. 1,000 folding chairs had been laid out on the courtyard lawn. Cell phones glimmered in the crowd as students lifted them, waiting for the familiar voice they had come to see. Charlie Kirk stood at the podium, smiling slightly, one hand tucked in his suit pocket, the other gesturing as he spoke. He was in the middle of a sentence about resilience, about how America was a country worth fighting for. When it happened, a sharp crack. First, no one moved. Then, screaming. Chairs toppling. The world spun into chaos. Charlie's head jerked to the side, and his body crumpled behind the lectern. Security guards rushed forward, shoving people away, but the damage had already been done. Blood pooled on the wooden stage floor as paramedics tore through the crowd. And then, 20 seconds of pure silence. No one knew yet that the shot had come from the rooftop of a nearby building. No one knew yet that Charlie Kirk, at just 31 years old, had less than an hour to live. And no one knew that this single gunshot would ignite one of the largest political manhunts in modern American history. Charlie Kirk was born on October 14, 1993, in the northern suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, in a quiet town called Arlington Heights. His father, Robert, was an architect. His mother, Tina, worked as a mental health counselor. They raised him in a modest two-story house, the kind with basketball hoops over the garage and bikes leaning against the porch rail. Childhood friends remember him as high energy, restless, always talking, always debating. Even as a boy, he had a fascination with America's founding. He would watch grainy documentaries about the Revolutionary War while other kids played video games. But he was also deeply insecure. He was shorter than most of his classmates, and sports didn't come naturally. That feeling of being underestimated, of being dismissed, would become one of the quiet driving forces of his life. In high school at Wheeling High, Charlie found his voice. He joined the debate team and discovered something electrifying. The power of words. The ability to stand in a room and change minds simply by speaking. He became obsessed. He studied the cadence of Ronald Reagan speeches late into the night, practiced arguments in front of his bathroom mirror, even recorded himself to analyze his tone. Then, at age 18, he had what he called his awakening moment. He wrote an op-ed for the Chicago Tribune criticizing what he saw as liberal bias in school textbooks. The piece went viral in conservative circles. That single article caught the eye of a businessman named Bill Montgomery, who saw something unusual in the wiry teenager. A spark of ambition that bordered on ferocity. Montgomery invited Charlie to a breakfast meeting at a Denny's in the summer of 2012. Over eggs and black coffee, they hatched a plan. Montgomery said, "Don't go to college. Build something bigger." And Charlie listened. That fall, while his classmates headed to universities, Charlie founded Turning Point USA out of a spare bedroom with just a laptop, a phone, and $1,000 in donations. He was 18. No degree, no connections, no blueprint, but he had relentless drive. He crisscrossed the country in beat-up rental cars, speaking at high schools, then community colleges, then major universities, hammering on themes of capitalism, limited government, and personal responsibility. He would sleep on couches, survive on granola bars, and cold call donors until 3 a.m. By 2016, Turning Point USA had exploded into a national organization with chapters on hundreds of campuses. Charlie became a fixture on Fox News and conservative talk shows. He built an empire of influence in less than 5 years. But with the fame came fury. Protests followed him from campus to campus. Progressive students accused him of spreading disinformation, of dividing young people. The backlash only made him more defiant. Charlie Kirk thrived on confrontation. He seemed to feed on it. He launched fiery podcasts, debated liberal icons, and became one of the loudest voices of the pro-Trump youth movement. To his followers, he was a warrior. To his critics, a provocateur. He didn't care which. By 2020, his Twitter feed was a torrent of blunt slogans and battlefield metaphors. He talked about culture war and taking America back. He was polarizing and powerful. That power would make him a hero to some and a target to others. But no one could have imagined what would happen on September 10th, 2025. Not even him. By late August 2025, Charlie Kirk was running on fumes. He was midway through his American Comeback Tour, a 25-campus speaking blitz designed to energize conservative students ahead of the 2026 midterms. Every stop was choreographed. Music, lights, roaring crowds, American flags rippling behind him like stage curtains. But underneath the spectacle, he was exhausted. Friends say he had grown quieter between events. On plane rides, he stared out the window, earbuds in, not speaking. Still, he pressed forward. He told his team, "Momentum is everything. If we slow down, we lose the youth." And so the schedule tightened. 3 cities in 4 days, then 4 cities in 5. Behind the scenes, security had quietly raised concerns. A handful of threatening messages had trickled into Turning Point USA's inboxes. Vague, angry rants from anonymous accounts. Nothing specific, nothing actionable. Just noise until it wasn't. On September 2nd, a week before the Utah event, Kirk's executive assistant flagged an unusual message. The subject line read, "Losee Center has a view." No greeting, no signature, just one sentence inside the email. "When he speaks, tell him to look up." The email was routed through a VPN in Eastern Europe, with no traceable metadata. Campus police were notified, but without a direct threat or identifiable sender, they filed it away. No one mentioned it to Charlie. September 10th, 2025. Utah Valley University, Orem, Utah. The air was crisp and dry, the Wasatch Mountains etched like knives against the blue sky. Charlie woke at 6:10 a.m. at the Provo Marriott. He texted his fiancée, "Almost done. Can't wait to be home tonight." Security swept the courtyard stage at 10 a.m. Students began gathering by 11 o'clock. By noon, the crowd was electric. Hundreds of phones flashed in the sun as he walked on stage. Navy suit crisp, hair combed high, voice sharp. He spoke for 18 minutes. Then came the sentence that would hang forever in the air. "This country is worth fighting for." 12:21 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. A single, high-velocity crack tore through the courtyard. For 2 seconds, no one moved. Then chaos detonated. The bullet entered the left side of Charlie Kirk's neck. It severed his carotid artery. He collapsed behind the podium as his security team lunged forward, shields raised, eyes scanning the rooftops. Students screamed, scattered, dove behind folding chairs. Camera phones tumbled to the ground, recording dizzy footage of sky and feet and pavement. A nurse from the audience rushed on stage, pressing her hands to his neck, blood soaking through her palms. Stay with me, Charlie," she pleaded. He blinked, once, then his eyes slid shut. Paramedics arrived within 4 minutes. They intubated him on the stage floor, worked compressions in the ambulance, and raced him to Timpanogos Regional Hospital. He was pronounced dead at 1:07 p.m. While medics fought for his life, police scoured the campus. Witnesses reported a flicker of movement on the roofline of the Losee Center, 300 feet from the stage. SWAT officers breached the building, clearing stairwells floor by floor. On the rooftop, they found 3 brass casings and scuffed boot prints leading to a maintenance hatch. Down the stairwell, a discarded black windbreaker. latex gloves, and a half-empty bottle of water with smudged fingerprints. Outside, campus security footage caught a shadowed figure slipping out a side door of the Losee Center at 12:24 p.m. They moved quickly, almost calmly, carrying what looked like a long duffel bag. Then they vanished into the tree line bordering the campus. By 3 p.m., the campus was locked down. FBI agents, Utah County deputies, and ATF investigators flooded the area. A sniper's nest had been found, a bipod mount, a small bag of shell casings, and a clear sightline directly to the podium stage. Nearby, hidden in dense brush less than half a mile from the building, officers recovered a high-powered bolt-action rifle, a Remington 700 chambered in .308, fitted with a suppressor. It was clean, no prints, no serial number. Forensic teams fanned out, collecting shoe impressions, palm prints, and forearm sweat smears from the stairwell railing. Helicopters thudded overhead, and yet, as night fell, there was still no name, no face, no suspect. By evening, the news broke nationwide. Cable networks cut to breaking coverage. Charlie Kirk shot dead in Utah. Twitter/X erupted into shock, grief, and vitriol. His allies mourned. His critics debated. His fans gathered outside Tpusa headquarters in Phoenix, sobbing and waving flags. President and congressional leaders issued statements condemning the attack as an act of political terrorism. But in the FBI field office, analysts stared at surveillance stills from UVU campus cameras. A tall figure in dark clothing, long sleeves, cap pulled low, face hidden. They had a ghost who had just killed one of the most polarizing political figures in America. The first 48 hours after a political assassination are chaos. Evidence floods in, tips flood in, and almost none of it is usable. By September 11, 2025, the FBI's Salt Lake City field office was drowning in noise. 11,000 public tips from across the country. 600 hours of surveillance video. For separate people claiming they were the shooter as a joke. Dozens of conspiracy videos on TikTok claiming the killing was staged. But buried under the noise, small real clues began to emerge. Latent print technicians lifted partial palm prints from the metal hatch leading to the Losee Center roof. The patterns were faint, sweat and oil, but they ruled out dozens of campus maintenance workers. DNA analysts scraped epithelial skin cells from the inside of the latex gloves. Result: male, likely between 18 and 30. And then came something stranger. Microscopic flecks of red clay soil stuck to the boots' tread marks on the rooftop. Utah Valley campus has no red clay anywhere near it. The shooter had walked in from somewhere else, somewhere far away. Federal cyber teams launched a full scrape of campus Wi-Fi logs, hoping the shooter's phone had pinged nearby towers. It hadn't. Whoever fired that shot had either left their phone off or used a burner. But one digital artifact caught their eye. At 12:05 p.m., 16 minutes before the shot, a laptop on the third floor of the Losee Center connected to the university's public Wi-Fi for exactly 90 seconds. MAC address, unregistered. Device name, Echo. Then it disconnected. A forensic image of that network handshake showed one thing: a single outgoing message to an encrypted dark web forum known to law enforcement as the Marrow Room. The message read simply, "Clear line of sight. Beginning. Pressure was suffocating." Cable pundits speculated wildly about who could be behind it. Foreign governments, rival activists, even rogue insiders from Turning Point itself. 2 men were briefly detained. A 24-year-old former Tpusa staffer who had once threatened to sue Kirk, and a 19-year-old anarchist student seen filming from the Losee Center window. Both were cleared within hours. Their release only fueled the chaos online. conspiracy videos multiplied. Was Charlie Kirk assassinated by the deep state? False flag shooting to start civil war? Millions of views, millions of comments. For FBI Special Agent Mara Jensen, who had been assigned as lead investigator, it was like chasing a shadow through fog. No clear motive, no fingerprints, no witnesses, just a body and silence. On the morning of September 15th, 5 days after the killing, a brown padded envelope arrived at the Salt Lake City field office. No return address. Postmarked, Flagstaff, Arizona. Inside, a 64 gigabytes USB drive. A torn scrap of paper with 4 words in block letters. You're looking inward. The USB drive contained a single video file, 21 seconds long. Security camera footage from a distant gas station. Timestamped 3:48 p.m. the day of the shooting. It showed a tall figure in dark clothing, face hidden, loading what appeared to be a long rifle case into the trunk of a silver Subaru Outback. The plate number was deliberately obscured with black tape. But the camera caught a glimpse of something on the rear bumper as the car pulled away. A faded sticker, a red triangle inside a black circle. Jensen stared at the still image for hours. Felt familiar, like something she had seen before. 2 days later, one of her analysts cracked it. The sticker was the emblem of a tiny, defunct paramilitary group called the Sentinel Pact, an anti-government survivalist network that had briefly operated in Arizona and New Mexico in the early 2010s before collapsing under federal pressure. Most of its known members were middle-aged or dead. But one old FBI memo mentioned something chilling. The Pact's doctrine: remove the head to awaken the body. In their warped worldview, the head meant symbolic figures, people who embodied institutions they wanted to destroy. It was the first whisper of motive, and possibly of organization. But the pact was supposed to be gone, unless someone had revived it. The break came from an unexpected place. A forearm sweat sample lifted from the stairwell railing. The FBI's rapid DNA lab ran it through Cody's. No hits in criminal databases, but one private genealogy service found a 34% familial match, a second cousin living in Nevada who had submitted his DNA for ancestry mapping. With a subpoena, agents traced the family tree and found one name that fit: Evan R. Cole. Age: 27. Born in Colorado. No criminal record. Last known address: an off-grid trailer on Bureau of Land Management property near the Arizona-Utah border. And his social media? Scrubbed. Completely gone. But on an old cached forum post from 2019, Jensen's team found a username he once used: Echo_7. September 19th. 9 days after the assassination. At 4:14 a.m., FBI SWAT teams surrounded the desert property where Evan Cole was believed to be living. The place was eerily still. No lights, no movement. They breached at dawn. Inside, a cot, canned food, a solar battery array, and a clean square imprint on the floor where a rifle case had once been. On the wall above the bed, scratched faintly into the plywood, were 3 words: heads must fall. Cole himself was gone. But next to the cot, hidden under a loose floorboard, agents found a folded map. A red line traced from Orem, Utah south to Phoenix, Arizona, and then east to Washington, D.C. And in the margin, scrawled in jagged block letters: next. By the 3rd week of September, America was holding its breath. The man believed to have killed Charlie Kirk, Evan R. Cole, was still out there. Cable networks ran his name in red banners. Armed and dangerous, the FBI tip line was receiving over 5,000 calls a day. For millions of Kirk's followers, this wasn't just about one man's death. It felt like a message that anyone could be silenced. Protests broke out in Phoenix, Salt Lake City, even Washington, D.C. Counter-protests rose up in response. Everywhere, the same questions echoed. Who was Evan Cole? Was he part of something larger? And where would he strike next? FBI Special Agent Mara Jensen hadn't slept more than 4 hours a night since Orem. Her war room walls were papered with maps, grainy stills, flight logs, and license plate reader hits. For days, nothing. Then on September 23rd, at 2:17 a.m., a hit. A silver Subaru Outback with obscured plates was caught on a highway camera near Gallup, New Mexico, heading southeast. Tacked to the Subaru's cracked rear bumper, the same red triangle inside a black circle. By 8 a.m., a multi-agency task force had mobilized across 3 states. Cole's trail bent like a knife toward Washington, D.C. September 25th, U.S. Marshals traced Cole to a vacant farmhouse outside Roanoke, Virginia. The property was remote. Dense pines, a collapsing barn, an abandoned well. At 3:03 a.m., tactical teams surrounded the house. Thermal scopes picked up a single heat signature inside. Jensen gave the order. Go! Flashbangs, shouting, boots pounding through rotting wood floors. The farmhouse was empty. Cole had been there recently. A cold cup of instant coffee sat on a crate beside a rolled sleeping bag. And on the wall, burned into the plaster with the flame of a lighter, were the words, "The tree needs water." Pinned below it, a passport photo of Charlie Kirk. The map Jensen had found weeks earlier now made terrifying sense. Cole was moving east deliberately, steadily, and the word "next" scrawled on that map margin had one obvious destination: the U.S. Capitol. Federal agencies scrambled to harden security in D.C., deploying counter-sniper teams to rooftops and closing the National Mall to public gatherings. Members of Congress were given armored motorcades. The manhunt consumed the nation. Still, Cole slipped through. September 27th, 7:42 p.m. Union Station, Washington, D.C. A maintenance worker reported a man sitting motionless on a bench, hood pulled low, staring at the Capitol dome through the glass atrium. When transit police approached, he vanished into the crowd. Security cameras caught one fleeting frame: a thin face, hollow cheeks, pale eyes, black baseball cap. Evan Cole. He had made it to the Capitol, and he was hunting. September 29th, 2025, 3:46 a.m. Rock Creek Park, Washington, D.C. A homeless man scavenging for cans heard rustling in the underbrush. Then a faint metallic click. He called 911. By 4:12 a.m., FBI HRT teams had surrounded the woods. Drones circled overhead with infrared scopes. Through the trees they saw him, Evan Cole, crouched in the brush, assembling a rifle. Jensen whispered into her radio, "Take him alive if possible." Cole saw the drones. He bolted. Gunfire cracked through the forest, short, sharp bursts. Agents ducked behind trunks, shouting commands. Cole scrambled down a rocky slope, disappeared into a drainage tunnel. They followed. Deep inside the tunnel, they found it: his rifle, his pack, his boots, but not him. Cole had slipped into the sewer network beneath the city and vanished. As September ended, the largest domestic manhunt in decades ground on. Charlie Kirk's funeral drew 4,000 mourners in Phoenix. Flags draped over the pews. His fiancée wept as she placed a folded letter into the casket. Outside, thousands of supporters lined the streets waving American flags. The man who had spent his life talking about fighting for America had died on an American stage, speaking those very words, and the man who killed him was still free. Weeks have passed. Evan Cole's name is now on every federal watch list in existence, but he has not resurfaced. Some say he's dead. Others believe he's waiting, watching. The FBI's Mara Jensen still keeps his map pinned above her desk. The red line stops at Washington, D.C., but in the corner, barely visible, is a tiny penciled arrow that points further, east, across the ocean. Charlie Kirk's death left behind a country raw and divided. But from the wreckage, something quieter has emerged. A reminder that words have power, and power has consequences. In the rush to win arguments, we sometimes forget the humanity of those who disagree with us. Charlie was many things, bold, controversial, relentless, but he was also someone's son, someone's friend, someone's fiancé. No matter our politics, the violence that took him cannot become normal. It must not. An enemy is just someone whose story you haven't heard yet. Jean Knudsen Hoffman. We must learn to live together as brothers, or perish together as fools. Martin Luther King Jr. In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Martin Luther King Jr. So talk to someone you disagree with. Listen. Understand before you fight. Because if we lose our ability to see each other as human, we lose everything. This was the assassination of Charlie Kirk. His life, his death, and the ghost who walked away. What do you think about this story? Leave your thoughts in T.